Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sisters, I hope all of you are well. Excuse me. Hope all of you are well. I did want to come back and share another birthing story and craft a little bit. I have some earrings to make for a sister. And so, well, there actually is more like a repair of some earrings that I have to fix for a sister. But anywho, so yes, I did. I'm gonna share another birthing story as I craft again. I really did enjoy that. So I guess that's a new thing, craft and share. But I have watched other people do it, and so excuse me, it's gonna get a little noisy. I should have did this before I started the video. However, if you are new, I am Alanisa Salahadeen. This is Her and Hardeen, where I share beautiful things, hopefully that inspire and help all of my sisters of faith, alhamdulillah, understanding that we are women of faith, but, women of faith, how to basically create a little holistic peace every day, And so, yeah, it's not easy, but it is possible. And it just means that we have to pay attention to our substance. That's how I think about it. You have to pay attention to our substance, Anywho, I'm not going to ramble about that because that ain't why I came here. I came here to talk about my birthing story. So I've already shared my birthing story with Makaira, my 11-year-old. And so now we have Mustafa. So with Mustafa, he's pretty amazing. His story is really awesome, actually, because he is the first child that I have with my husband. And so when I met my husband, we both knew where we were at. We both knew what we wanted, in children. We both knew that we were ready to have more children. We knew we wanted to have more children with someone that wanted to have more children, of a certain quality. So my husband was already vegan. And so I was like a flexitarian when I met my husband. I hadn't fully converted over to veganism, but I was very interested in definitely having another child that I definitely consciously knew that I wasn't doing the same thing. And I'm not sure if that makes any sense, but I knew that I was removing certain things from my body. I knew that I was definitely getting more nutrients. I knew that I was working on myself internally. So I definitely was aware of the possibility of having a new, child. And I say new because I'm working on myself. Essentially, I know that my children are going to have some different components of me. That's just my metaphysics and my health consciousness of myself. And so when I met my husband, he said, well, I don't eat meat. So I know that I definitely want to be with somebody, have children with somebody who is on that type of time. And so I was just like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. So meeting my husband and him knowing these things and me working on these things made our son Mustafa very intentional. And so we basically were trying to make Mustafa, and very early in our marriage, but I'll have to talk about marriage another day because this is not that story. However, it does probably seem a little backwards. So I'm talking about my birthing stories before I start talking about my marriage, but that's my business. So, but anywho, so I meet my husband. We both know we wanted a son specifically. And so we were already on our way to doing, taking care of the things on our end. And so roughly Mustafa, the physical manifestation of him, he is his third attempt. And so we couldn't, I know that it's not fully us. We don't actually get to choose when, we are, when we conceive. It feels like it, it feels like it. It does feel like it. However, what we're doing is we're playing co-creators with God, and we're trying to get in alignment. And so I literally, after two failed attempts of not being pregnant, I literally sat down with my calendar. I went online and I looked up the ovulation calendar. I looked up the Mayan calendar. I think it was another calendar because we knew we wanted a boy. So I literally took my time and researched where all of the things that I could know about having a boy, because I started to feel like there has to be something behind the scenes that I'm not aware of. And it wasn't because we didn't get pregnant the first time. It just seems like I'm trying to increase the likeliness of not just getting pregnant, but getting pregnant with a boy, a very specific, a son. And so that led me into my studies of the reproduction process. And in there, I learned that the woman is naturally an acidic being. Her makeup is acidic. Her vagina is acidic. The vagina is literally a 4.3, is registered as a 4.3 pH, which makes it an acidic property because anything below 7 is actually neutral. The skin itself is a 7. I went to cosmetology school. So inside of our books, these are things that we learn about chemistry because we deal with chemicals. And so I knew that the skin itself was a 7, roughly a 6.57, and it all depends. However, the skin is the external. The vagina is on the internal. And so that makes it a slightly different environment. However, I'm like, okay, what is the beneficial point of that? When you go and look at the male sperm registers as an alkaline property. So that was so exciting when I found that. And I told my husband, I said, listen, we have to do some real heavy duty cleansing because we're naturally already supposed to be together. However, when we're talking about procreation, it supersedes us. So we're going to have to really get intentional about what we're doing. And so we ended up fasting for like 20 days, like no sex, nothing. Like I'm taking salt baths, like heavily alkaline baths and everything, and like nothing for 20 days because we're trying to get a boy. So we're working with a lot of information from like the moon and the planetary positions. Like it's everything literally at this point on the table because we're doing this on purpose. And so my husband was with it. And then, like I said, that acidic property for the vagina and the alkaline property of the male sperm, the significance of that information came out to be that if the womb is not, if it's not comfortable for the male sperm, they die off early. And that's when you have this female gender takeover of sperm because the girls are already available. They're already abundant. The womb is already susceptible to carry that, the female sperm full term because the womb itself is acidic. It's already of her environmental structure basically. And so I was just like, man, this is real intense. Like this is like, I got so happy. I'm still happy about just seeing it because I'm like, wow, maybe this is something to, further study into. And I'm still working on a lot of stuff behind the scenes. But however, it proved to be very substantial information because, again, I'm older. So when I had Mustafa, I was about to be 38. And so I ended up still kind of sort of being a high risk pregnancy. So there's a lot of things that I was offered early. Like I got to learn, we got all of the tests, of course, to find out whether or not he would have I think Down syndromes run high in high risk pregnancies. And there's certain levels of autism too that are on different spectrums of autism that they can see the markers as the baby's growing inside of the womb. So I got all of those tests. Along with those, because they're already doing tests, they also get to see his gender. And so that was something that my husband, he's not able to do surprises. Like he just could not, he couldn't wait. Like I wanted to be surprised. I wanted to wait. He could not wait. So we had to find out. So we also got to find out around, I want to say somewhere between like 8 and 10 weeks, the gender of Mustafa. And so, matter of fact, I think it was like 8 and 14 weeks. It was like somewhere in there. And because it wasn't an ultrasound, we actually got lab work done. That was like ironclad. This is who's in there. And so we got the phone call and it was Mustafa. And so my husband literally was just like elated. Like we literally felt like we had just broke whatever code of the matrix, that nobody could solve. And, we felt like we had accomplished that. And so, yeah, we carried Mustafa. So with my pregnancy with him, I definitely felt like my heartburn was minimal for all the side effects that you have being pregnant with a girl versus a boy. My heartburn was minimal with Mustafa. With Makaira, it was very high, but I know that my diet was different. Like being a vegan with Mustafa, I felt like I didn't have a lot of heartburn. My cravings were still kind of the same. I'm like a heavy Pepsi drinker when I'm pregnant. Like I love Pepsi. My water had to be ice cold, and I definitely had the ice crunch, the ice thing. So all that mineral based craving stuff. However, the most significant thing that I really noticed with him is that he remained head down. Like every time we got an ultrasound, he was always in the birthing position, which made me feel like, okay, well, this time I'm really going to like birth my baby, because Makaira was a C-section. Not only was she a C-section, she was an emergency C-section, which means that I carried her full term. I carried her to, she was 9 days overdue, so she was a little over 41 weeks. And yeah, she was breech, and it just wasn't happening. So I felt really good about Mustafa because I'm like, okay, he's head down. Every time they check, I'm going to be able to birth him. And so with the practice that we go to, they have 5 midwives and 5 doctors, and they are amazing. And all women practice. And they offer the VBAC, and that's where I learned that term. Because mind you, in my other story, there was a lot of things I just did not know about having my first child. So by now, I at least understand what the difference is between a vaginal birth and a cesarean, and even in the recoveries, having had an emergency C-section, I even understand how to recover from a C-section. However, I was not mentally prepared in my first pregnancy for the vaginal birth, so I still never really researched how to recover from it because I could never just get over the thought of pushing the baby out of my vagina. And it's it still scares me. I don't even know what to say about that. However it does, it still scares me. Anywho, so I with Mustafa, I got excited because I'm like, oh wow, now I'll get to, actually birth my baby because they offer a VBAC. And so I started studying again to see what to expect for labor and delivering. And so I literally worked my entire pregnancy. I did not take my maternity leave until 2 days before I went into labor. Well, I was actually in active labor. And so I made it up to, I believe we were 3 or 4 centimeters when we checked into the hospital, which we now understand was a very bad thing to do, is go to the hospital when you were that low, because, which I'll get to in just a second. Let me see. So I'm having all my contractions, Braxton Hicks, everything. And so we're carrying him all the way, basically full term. And yeah, I felt like I was in labor, but I worked a full-time job, and then I also did yoga. And so my body was just in a much, much, much better position by the time I birthed Mustafa. My birth weight with Makaira, I tapped out at 160, and that's literally the day of my C-section, the last time they weigh you when you're pregnant. And so I literally was 160. And then with Mustafa, I believe I was 168 at birth, of my birth weight with him. And so I trying to put a hole with this little hand drill. Shouts out to all my sisters who craft. You guys are awesome. It's really good for your mental health too. If you don't craft, you should, because it just gives you something else to focus on, and it's an intentional thing. Crafting is so intentional. It's so good. It's therapeutic. It's like another way to love on yourself. Go make something. Make something for somebody else. Make something for yourself. Make something for the children. I love making stuff for my children though. It's just something about seeing something I've made for them. They make stuff for me too though. But anywho, so yeah, so I'm at work, and essentially it just got to the point where I think my contractions were so bad, like literally he felt like he was coming out some days. And so I finally put in for my maternity leave, and we start feeling like, okay, he's going to come. And so we go ahead and we do all our registration stuff, and we get ready, and then we get to the hospital, and he's literally only 3 centimeters, almost 4 centimeters. And so my birthing plan kicks in at when we register at the hospital. So now we're just going into VBAC mode, So I have all these procedures already in my birth plan that my amazing husband actually wrote. And so we had the no pacifier, we have the no vaccinations, we have all of the things that you want them to know. No sugar water. We wanted them circumcised. We have all these things that you have to have because there's a lot of things people don't know until you get into the hospital, and you should research it for where you're at because I believe every state is different. Or every country is different for that part. But you can only do certain things if it's in writing at the time in which the baby is there. If they offer it to you, that's a blessing. But a lot of things, like, they won't just offer it to you because it's almost like one less thing they have to do, one less thing they have to worry about. So if you want certain things, you have to tell them, like, hey, I want this, like the placenta. So the thing is, like with Makaira, I banked her cord blood. I know the process of that and I was comfortable with it. With Mustafa, I wanted to make it as well because I feel like with the way the system is, if anything was to happen and your child needed this emergency service, to me, it kind of covers them in a way where they're on this registry and they have that for themselves, even if it's later on down the road, if their children or whomever, they're on that list of having had that, and so I believe that that's a good thing to have the cord blood banked. But there's some people that want the placenta for themselves, and we wanted Mustafa's placenta. However, we didn't have a prepared place because once you actually tell them you want it, you actually have to take it and remove it from the hospital. Then it can't stay with you. And so that was another thing. So it was just like, okay, this wasn't something that we was prepared for. We wasn't prepared to like take a placenta out the hospital and move it or take it somewhere or anything like that. So that was totally like a drop on our part. Like we missed that opportunity. Neither here nor there, because he ended up being an emergency C-section as well. So with the VBAC in our birthing plan, we had a Foley bulb. Foley bulb is basically when they take like this balloon-like thing, and they have different shapes, I guess, for the canal of the woman to assist her with, to assist the uterus with contracting and opening so that the baby can come down. When it gets up to a certain centimeters, that's when normally, I guess, the baby descends and then you're able to push the baby out. These are only things I've studied. I've never actually birthed a baby out of my vagina to know. However, my birthing plan was to cover the things that I would need assistance with because I'm a high-risk pregnancy. I've never birthed a baby. So we assume that I'm going to need assistance in this area. And so, long story short, the Foley bulb didn't work. I think the lady put it in wrong. That's neither here nor there. Water under the bridge at this point. And we ended up having an emergency C-section with Mustafa because he ended up being in distress. I labored for 10 hours. He was in distress. It was like the cord was wrapped around his neck. And every time my midwife would check my cervix, he was literally like not doing well. His vitals would drop. And so we took that as a very bad sign that there was something going on with my love child. And so we had an emergency C-section. He was very, very good. He came out great, perfect weight. I believe he was 7'11". I believe he was like 7'11", something like that. He definitely wasn't over 8. However, when we got him home, brother did not immediately, he latched on at the hospital. And then he kind of got a little weird. And then he just kind of tripped when we got home. Like his fourth trimester thing was like night and day. Like he really was uncomfortable at home. The first 11 days he cried. He did not latch on. I think he even lost a little weight. And so it was really rough on both of us because he wasn't sleeping well. He wasn't eating well. And then at one point my husband was just like, forget it. He didn't want him to have a bottle, no pacifier. By the time we got to, I think, about day 10 and a half, he was just like, I'm going to Walmart and I'm going to get every bottle they got. He literally came back with like 4 different bottles. He was like, these are the best ones. I Googled them all. 2 pacifiers, different colors and all the stuff for boys. And so, yeah, but we had trouble with him for that 11 days. And then after that, it was like smooth sailing. He literally nursed every day up until, it's almost like I had to kick him off, up until 2.5 years old. And he didn't eat very well. He's still kind of touchy, but he's a vegan, so it's not like we're scared nutrition wise. I'm always on the back end trying to fill in the blanks with supplements and then smoothies and fresh fruit to make sure that he's getting the nourishment, the nutrients, and the minerals and vitamins that he needs to get naturally on his own, because he's no longer nursing on me. His brother is about to be 4 years old, going to college, medical school, all the stuff. So we're broken up. We're done. It's official. It's over. However, he transitioned fairly well, but it was a struggle. The weaning process with him was not comfortable for either one of us, because he was very used to being able to come and like point to me and be like, boobs. And then I would like put him in the position, and sometimes he can even climb up on me and like just put himself in a position, which was one of the first ways that I even knew that he could communicate to me very early. He was like seven months, I believe, and he literally was hungry and he didn't have words, but he kind of like tilted himself to the side and leaned back in my arms, and I was like, "Are you ready to eat?" And he was just looking at me like, And that's basically how I understood that he knew how to communicate to me, and that's basically like one of the gifts. If you are paying attention to your children when you are doing these things with them, even if it's your first time, it's their first time too, but paying attention to them while you're doing it, they can kind of help cultivate your understanding of it. And breastfeeding is not rocket science, and I'll get into more of it with my other video, because this one is I'm gonna have to cut it. But breastfeeding, there's a lot more to it than what we actually understand. But I do believe that there's some level of communication that is happening inside of the connection. One, we know that skin to skin, we know that's healthy, but with the neurotransmitters, with the mother baby bonding, connecting, like I believe that you really can talk to your child in that position more, even from here, directly through your milk. And so with the postpartum, I did not experience postpartum symptoms. Okay, well, maybe I did for roughly like 2 weeks, maybe even a month at the most with Mustafa. The significance is that I had a whole support system. My husband was always there. He was always a part of everything I did. He was a part of everywhere I went. He was a part of everything that I craved, I didn't crave. He was a part of giving me space. And I think that was very significant versus when I didn't have the support with my family and my prior mate with Makara's father and things like that. So there was a lot of things that ultimately I felt like helped me better shift through my motherhood journey. And I don't have much to speak on with my postpartum. The snapback, again, I didn't have to work as hard because I worked full time with Mustafa, and I actually worked out with Mustafa. My body was in a much better shape after I had him. So I was able to pull everything right back. Even after having a C-section, my recovery time was a lot shorter, and I felt better after having him, for having a support system, and then again, not having to focus on the pain because I was aware of the process, So anywho, I don't want to ramble on that. And yeah, I hope that somewhere in there somebody heard something that was useful. And if not, share with somebody else. Maybe something I said will help someone else go through the journey. And this was my second child. So, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And, you're more than welcome to leave your birthing stories down in the comments, and we can chat about those. And if there's something, again, nutrient-wise, I took prenatals my whole pregnancy. I did not stop taking prenatals with him. I literally took prenatals up until I got pregnant with my third child. So I did not even have a break in that. And I took the DHA and EPA, and they were vegan. So yes, my whole pregnancy. And my babies take vegan. I have to find them another brand, because there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes with some of these brands, and they're not really continuing a lot of the ones I like. So I'm in the research property. If somebody know a good vegan child vitamin, multivitamin, put it in the comments below. But anywho, I will share my third child story, birthing, postpartum story with you guys in another video. Thank you for tuning in to Her and Her Dean. I'm Alanisa Sada. Later.